I've actually heard of stories of not going to the hospital, but women tearing during a home birth. And, tearing, it could be a little tear, it could be a big tear. And I have actually heard of women that were told afterwards, this was your fault. You did this. You caused this tear. That happened because you did this. You weren't pushing right. You weren't thinking right. You didn't have your head right. That's what you did. You deserve this. But they're not telling women that, guess what? You can have birth anywhere and tear. It can happen. You can tear. Hello, it's a freaking baby coming out of a very small place. Like, have you seen how big a baby is? Even little tiny ones are still big. So it's just like, come on, don't tell people this nonsense of whatever. So I have heard of women that have continuously had home births, even though they have torn while giving birth, because they believed that the reason that they had the tear was their own fault. That this was their fault. They pushed too hard. They did something wrong. They're not being told the truth. We're not being told the truth about our bodies. And so there's a level of guilt. And so, of course, you go right back and feed into the community because you think, I'm going to do it right next time. Or, you don't know the reality is you could tear next time and it could be even worse. It could be really bad. Like, they're not telling you these things. And that's what really bothers me about it is it's like hearing the stuff of getting medical care, like as if it's a bad thing or things happening like that's a bad thing for you. Your baby had needed NICU. So that must mean you're a bad mom. Like you didn't birth your baby right. Like that's not reality. That's not how this works. And so I'm tired of feeding into this natural idea that it has to be so extremely natural that, we have to just natural at all costs, natural, vaginal, and you have to just breathe your baby out and think these happy thoughts and all this other stuff. It's just not reality. It's just not reality of how birth actually works. It hasn't been reality of how it's been forever. If birth was that easy, we would never have hospitals. We would never have midwives. We would never have doulas. We would just be popping out our kids all over the place. We'd be at the grocery store like, there's my baby. And it'd be super easy and just be like, you just clean off, dust off your baby and you go on about your day. But birth is not like that. And as much as they try to say like birth is not a medical intervention and it's normal and it's natural, but unfortunately, even animals out there lose puppies or lose their babies or mother dies during childbirth. Like it does happen. Like we even know of like exotic animals that have had C-sections and stuff like that. Like this is the reality of what is like, this is life and death of stuff. So it's like, you have to make a choice. Like, what did you get pregnant for? Did you get pregnant for the birth experience? Or did you get pregnant because you really wanted your baby? You wanted your life, you wanted your child. Like, so I'm tired of this whole thing of like our birthing experience and that whole thing of like, yeah, it's not just about them living in their life. Well, you know what? They go hand in hand. We should have a good birth experience, but we should have people being honest to us too. That guess what? Stuff happens. Birth is unpredictable and terrible things could happen. You could rip, you could, whatever. There could be different things that happen to you and there could be different things that could happen to your baby. But having the proper person monitoring you to keep you safe is what we need. Why do we hire a midwife or a doula or anybody if they're not going to monitor us properly? Isn't that what their whole thing is? I'm going to support you. I'm going to be here for you, but I'm also going to watch you. I'm going to make sure that you're at a good place to be giving birth, because if I see that you get to a certain level, I realize, you know what, you've been pushing for a long time and I really want you to get pain relief. Because guess what, women, we don't have to have birth in pain anymore. We don't have to be in pain, screaming and crying. We have medical stuff that is safe for us, it's safe for our babies, and we don't have to be in pain. How many women have gone to the hospital and been like, I don't want an epidural, I don't want an epidural, and they're not processing, they're not moving forward, and finally somebody turns to them and says, look, if you get an epidural, there's a good chance that you're going to have your baby pretty fast because you've been pushing for a little while and you've been going through all this stuff, and it will prevent you probably from having a C-section. If we can get to that before we get to that, we can get there. And guess what? A lot of women get an epidural. They're like, wow, I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed. And voila, they have their babies, and they don't necessarily know. Some people do end up having a C-section. It does happen. Sometimes you push too long, things just happen. Baby went into stress. Maybe you went into stress. It's stressful to have birth. Like, it's stressful for everybody. So it's like, why can't we be honest about the options? Like, epidurals for everyone, and everybody get medical stuff. Like, we need to be like more honest about it, not just be like, oh no, you got to do this the natural way. You got to be, if you don't feel the pain, you are not a mom. You did not give birth. Like, do you know what I'm saying? And I'm tired of that. Like, oh, you had a C-section. You chose the easy way out. No, I don't think so. I chose my child's life, and therefore cut me open and do what you got to do. I want my kid. So that's where I don't understand. Like, why are we making this illusion? Like, you know,
it's one of the things that when we first started the VBAC group is I started seeing, one thing about home births and natural childbirth is there's a very extremely cookie cutter narrative that people follow, and it's almost like I can sit there and tick all the boxes, and I started seeing that in the VBAC group, and I'm like, okay guys, let's be honest. What did you go into your birth thinking or expecting? What did you want out of it? What was important? What happened which was unexpected? What happened that you didn't like? Because by golly, it's birth. It's a messy process. Things happen that you didn't like. Yes, that's part of birth. How was it handled? Did you feel supported? Was there, it's not a cookie cutter story. Everybody's story is individual. The one thing that bothers you greatly might not have made an impact on somebody else, but what matters is if it bothered you, could you communicate? Were you supported? Did you help dealing with it? This is important. It's not the, oh yeah, it was just a skid mark and it hurt and took forever and I bled a bit afterwards, but it was worth it. And I totally support home birth. Don't hold this against me. It's like, no, just be honest about what happened. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear a cookie cutter story they've heard a dozen times before, or at least I don't.
The indoctrination in the home birth community is insane. Absolutely insane. And it starts long before you become one of their patients for a lot of people, because I think I've said this in one of the videos. If you're thinking about a home birth and you're pregnant, there's a good chance that you're already on that very holistically minded path of thinking. Or you could be like me, where I wanted a home birth with my first. And then I wound up in that C-section, that cascade of intervention, C-section that every midwife, like I know when I walked into my midwife's office for my consultation, I was the dream. I was everything that they preach is wrong with hospitals and yada, yada, yada. But I want to touch on the indoctrination and the blame game that we were just discussing. Midwives will blame you for your failed labor before you're even pregnant. They will plant the seeds long before you're their patient to say, if this doesn't work out, it's because of you. And now this, thankfully, she was smart enough to wait a day to post this, but the day after what would have been my son's birthday, so almost exactly on the 1-year anniversary of a death at her facility, the owner, the head midwife of where my son died, posted a post on Instagram about shoulder dystocia and babies being born frequently with her practice having shoulder dystocia. And I'm not going to read the full thing, but there's a line in it that she has 11,000 followers on Instagram. So 11,000 people. I doubt all of them are pregnant. I doubt all of them are her patient. She's doing this work for the whole midwifery community. Here's a line in her post. Birthing people intuitively know what to do with their bodies to give their babies room to navigate the pelvis. And healthy babies are made to cope with getting a little stuck sometimes. So anybody who's reading this can read it as somebody who loses a child in home birth is not an intuitive parent, and a baby who dies in home birth is an unhealthy baby. She has warriors, women who I pushed for 12 hours. I was in her facility for 16 hours. I'm a warrior. I'm everything that midwives say a woman is. My baby was beautiful and he was healthy. There is no reason for him to be dead besides the mismanagement of my labor. And things like that are designed to make women like me and Danielle feel like we are at fault for our child's death. Danielle, it's not your intuition that killed Gavin. And it wasn't John's health that killed John. It was the inadequacies and the arrogance of home birth midwives that led both of us down this path. And I was discussing with a previous shoulder dystocia patient of my midwives about her experience with the midwife right around the time that she posted this. And I was like, did you by any chance see her most recent post? And this girl went and looked and she's like, I feel like she's shit talking me. I feel like this post is a shit talk to me because my baby got more than a little stuck. My baby didn't come out okay. And that's something that is so wrought within midwifery is the automatically, like they plant the seeds long before trauma and death happen to make it so that everyone who's following them, everyone who's reading what they have to say automatically believes, okay, well, she says all this stuff. It's all about intuition and it's all about the baby's health. But then I saw on this blog post that a baby died at her facility. So taking what I know about her business and taking what this blog post says, that mother must have just sucked and that baby was going to die anyways, which isn't the case.
That's just the whole thing of turning women against each other. So we have women empowerment is what we're being told and being fed. This is women empowerment. This is our rights, our body, it's our baby, it's our choice. But at the same time, they're turning us against each other so we don't talk to each other. They need to have the followers that follow whatever they say. And they have the women like us on the other side that are questioning what has been told to us and questioning what's going on and questioning the society, basically. So you don't have that empowerment anymore. You break us apart. If you break us apart, then they can keep pushing their perfect narrative because the perfect ones stick along while the other ones feel bad and kind of just hide off and shrink off away. Because if you can push a mother out and be like, well, this is your fault. This was your body. This is what your baby did. This is what, whatever. And then have other people that point blank say to you, like, if you share anything, when my post was online with what to do from my midwife, and the midwives all commented their nonsense of keep it going, just go on with the home birth as planned, blah, blah, blah. And they deleted all the hospital interventions or get help or anything. They deleted all that. And they left it only for the midwives and the doulas of the natural community and the followers to see, oh, look, baby's in trouble maybe. And we're just going to let it go because that's what we want to do. But when they put up baby died, I read these comments just in case you want to know. There's a lot of comments. There's a ridiculous amount of comments from these people and relatively the same people. And they're very, very popular. They are very popular named midwives here in the States, actually. And if you were to go down after it says my baby died, which by the way, the post has been removed. They think, hey, we're free of what we've done. There was people that said baby was sick. Oh, this was mother's choice. Things about my body. One of the comments that I thought was really interesting, and it's always stuck in my mind, was this comment about how I must have wanted an abortion Therefore, that is why I decided to refuse to go to the hospital, because I actually didn't want my baby to begin with. That is a midwife that is out there taking money from people for their birth. And I'm sure afterwards, that is what she says. When things go wrong, injury or death, she probably talks behind your back and says, oh, by the way, she didn't want her baby anyways. She wanted to abort that baby, because it's her choice. It's her right. It's her whatever. And that one is always stuck in my mind out of all the things that they said about my child and about myself and all the ways that they tried to blame me. Go ahead, blame me. I'll take it. I can take it. Don't put anything on my son. Do not say my kid's name. Do not talk crap about my kid. Don't say that my kid was unhealthy. Because first off, you're a freaking idiot and you don't have any medical training. You can't tell if somebody's healthy or not healthy anyway. So I don't need your opinion. And I don't want you talking about my kid. When you go off and tell people that my kid, the reason I'm whatever is I'm just a grieving mom and that my kid was just really sick and everybody tried to be there, whatever, you're full of crap. It's to cover you. And this is what they do. They do that on purpose. They go to these people that are looking into it and following it and say, you know what? That mom, she's just really upset because it was her choice to stay home and her baby was really sick and was going to die anyways. So that's what they do. They play this trick on moms, but at the same time, we're meeting them and they're saying it's all about women empowerment and it's all about our bodies and it's all about this natural thing of this natural sisterhood between us, this bond of having your babies together. But when things go wrong, boy, they will find any way to get you out of there, to get you away from their business, because they need to continue making money off from other women in the future, or the women that are still around that maybe they've already had a baby and they're going to have another baby. There's a lot of women that stick around with these midwives because they lie to them. They lie and they make up these stories, and they're not covered by HIPAA. So you can't have the hospital sharing the stories about what happened to these babies. That's why you don't hear the hospital sharing these stories, because they can't. Because they got involved, because they have protocols and they're professionals and they're not gossiping behind the backs of lost mothers and they're not gossiping about babies that died. Like, no, that's not how this works. They have a whole thing, a code of ethics that they have to follow that the midwives and doulas do not have. So this society that we feed into, we buy into, seems like this, whatever, but the only way you find out about it is when things go wrong. And then they gaslight you, and then they manipulate you, and then they trick you, and they twist your own thoughts and make you think that you're the bad one. And unfortunately, there's a lot of women that don't leave because they've been so abused by these natural people, they can't leave. Who's going to take them? Who's going to want them is what they think. I'm damaged goods. I'm the one that this happened to my kid. This is this kind of thing. So how could they can never get out. And I've seen, oh my gosh, I've seen so many posts online with these followers trying to convince other women that are looking into like what happened. So they're looking into like, hey, I heard that this midwife had a baby die. And they're asking questions and they want to know, and people are scared and they're starting to try to run to hospitals and doctors. And here comes these followers to do damage control and say, oh, no. The baby died because the baby was sick. And you need to look into this. This wasn't malpractice against the midwife, because if you look into the state and you see that there's nothing against the midwife, therefore the midwife didn't do anything wrong. We don't have state laws. They're not being criminally charged. So they're telling you a bunch of nonsense, telling you, look it up in your state. They ain't doctors. They're not freaking nurses. We can't look up and see what's going on with them. Most of them ain't licensed. Most of them don't even have a certificate. They don't have anything. How can you look them up? And how can we look them up when we live in a place where, I have no laws. All right. Well, they can change their names. They can move counties. They can move states. Mine did. Mine jumped all over the place and changed their name many, many times. We have no place to look them up. We have no place to have, like, all of us do our research and our homework about who we're hiring, which you can look that up from a doctor. You can see if the doctor doctors been like, stuff's happened. You can Google it, like doctors, because they talk about doctors and they talk about stuff like, they'll talk about people getting kicked out of hospitals and talked about lawsuits that have been on them and stuff like that. But we don't hear about midwives. We don't hear about doulas because there's nothing you can find. We can't find people that don't exist, that are not anywhere in the system. It's like a mechanic has to get a license. Somebody does your hair and nails have to get a license. You can find stuff about them, but we can't find anything about them. So the society that we feed into really, it's a made up an illusionist society that they get to say whatever they want to say, and we just either believe it or we don't. And if you don't believe it or you question it, you get booted and pushed aside, and they'll just make up stuff about you anyways. Like they'll just gossip behind your back, and nobody wants to be on that other end of the gossiping. Nobody wants to be booted out of the community that you sought to be into, and you're like, wow, I feel special. I'm happy here, and everybody loves me, and we all love each other, and we're a family. Nobody wants to be on the other side. Nobody wants to be the loser that got kicked out or the one that couldn't hack it and handle it. So unfortunately, that's what's going on everywhere. Basically, it's happening everywhere. Is we have this thing of the women empowerment is actually taking away from our empowerment. It's taking away from our choices. It's taking away from informed consent. It's taking away from our rights, because the truth is we need the truth. We need the truth. We should be allowed to have the truth. We should be allowed to see all sides. It's not fear mongering. It's not all this other crap that you want to say about us. Like a lost mom is a lost mom, no matter if she shares her story or not. She lost a baby. That's it. If your baby got injured, your baby got injured. That's the history of your life right there. Boom. You can't change it and manipulate it to buy into a system of like, this midwife was so great. If she wasn't, you would see those parents talking out about it and hear about all those things. That's not how that works. And Madison, you know about this even more than I do, because I didn't even know this was a thing, is that midwives turn around take our stories and say, well, if it was real, if it was bad, if the baby wasn't sick and going to die, then apparently we would hear about it. It would be in the news and these families would be whatever. But, you know, you think like probably Madison, mine's been 7 years. Mary Beth is a baby that she died before my son. And by the way, Bambi has spoke out. Bambi's in, you can actually look her up. She's physically done interviews with the news. She's physically done things. She's in articles. She's in whatever. She is all over. And by the way, they don't know who Mary Beth is. They don't know who that baby is. And by the way, her daughter would be a teenager. Her daughter would be a teenager. So that means my 7-year-old doesn't compare to what's been going on before. Nobody knows that she exists because they have belittled her story and her baby. And she's just one of the people that are on here. So, I mean, that's the problem, is they take our stories and they manipulate them to fit into us buying into their business, because they need us to keep coming back. They need more women to feed into this idea of being natural and so strong and so empowered to go against the man, the system, you know, the medical side of things. Like they make it like that's the only business that you're getting into, that you can go into and sign up and jump into the hospital. But the reality is, home birth and birth centers are a business, and they make more money than probably doctors and all of them do. And how do I know that? How does my midwife jump from here to here and here to here and here to here and buy a new house? And she's claimed bankruptcy a bunch of times. How do they do that? Because they're making cash that nobody can check into, you know?
My midwife lives in a $650,000 Victorian house. And she recently sold, I don't know if it's really 650, but she recently sold a house for $500,000, and she was like posting it all over her own business page. And I don't know what her husband does. He might do something that he makes a lot of money. He's doing an awful lot of work at her birth house for me to be able to believe that he works a full-time job or anything, but I don't know where that money comes from. But I do know these births are contributing to that. And I know all of her kids go to an extremely expensive Waldorf school around here. And she cannot be empowering people if she has a one-track mind. She's empowering herself, not every birth is designed for a vaginal birth. Not every body can produce a natural labor. And yes, our bodies often create children that they can't birth. I think it's craniosina something. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but one of my good friends, her son, thankfully, her first was born and had shoulder dystocia, because her second, her doctors were like, we're not going to let you vaginally deliver. It's too big of a risk now. Your baby is coming out C-section. Well, her baby, there was no way of knowing it. His skull was fused before he was born. Had they tried to deliver him, his body didn't have the mechanism to be able to be vaginally born. Imagine how that would have impacted a birth 150 years ago. So yes, our bodies are very frequently producing babies that we can't birth. The size of the human cranium and a baby's cranium have grown exponentially over the last 200 years. And our pelvises are not evolving to keep up with them. So yes, more and more frequently, women are producing babies that their bodies are not designed to birth. And if you have somebody who is trying to tell you all birth can happen vaginally, all birth can happen naturally, they are empowering themselves. They are not empowering you. Empowerment comes from knowing all of your options, weighing all of your options, and deciding for yourself what is the best course of action. And the majority of people that I know who've had out of hospital births that got complicated, there are a lot that are absolutely beautiful. They happen flawlessly. Even if they last a long time, there's really no cause for concern. And those, by all means, if you had one of those and you want to continue choosing home birth, I am about empowerment. So if you want to choose that for yourself, I support your decision. But if you have a midwife who is continually not educating you on what could happen and what the long-term implications of what can happen are, they are not empowering you. They are forcing your choices.